Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township for August 15th, 2023. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we'd open up in prayer with Mr. Tisdale.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Blessings on everyone tonight. I normally don't read a prayer, but I want to make sure I get all the points in that I feel God is speaking to me. So if you bear with me, I appreciate that very much. Let's come before the Lord tonight. Lord, I come before you tonight with a heavy heart. Our nation and our world are in turmoil. We say we are a nation under God, but our hearts are far from you. Many of our leaders lack wisdom because they do not fear you. You said in your word, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Foolishness abounds everywhere since so many deny your existence. You said clearly, the fool in his heart says there is no God. We attribute creation to some far-fetched theory and totally deny a sovereign God who created all things out of nothing, and more importantly, created mankind in his own image. We call good evil and evil good. We promote and encourage and flaunt sin and deny the absolute truth, which is your holy word. We think mankind can accomplish anything if he puts his mind to it. We think we can save our planet when we can't even save ourselves or others. Maybe if we concentrated more on you, the creator of the universe, and of all things in heaven and on earth, rather than creation itself, only we might see a vast improvement in our world, in our nation, and in our own lives. Nature does not respond to the voice of man. It only responds to your voice, O Lord. We have embraced the lies of the enemy of our souls and rejected the truth of the gospel message. We have placed our trust in others and ourselves rather than trusting in you. So tonight, I humbly ask you to forgive us. Without you, we can do nothing. I know there are many who trust in you, and we stand together in the gap for our nation and our world. Bring us to our senses or our knees, but better still to both. Return us to our first love. Help us to truly be a nation again that trusts totally in you. We are weak and frail, but you are strong and mighty. Pour out your Holy Spirit upon our land. Lead us and guide us off the wide path that leads to destruction, and place our feet on a narrow path that leads to hope, eternal life, and to your presence. All that we have comes from you. Hear my prayer tonight, O Lord, and save us. Turn not your back towards us. Deliver us by your great mercy and grace. In the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, I pray these things. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Okay, next item on the list is approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda is submitted.
Support.
Okay, motion in support of it, Mr. Montre? Is that? Or Mr. Gore? Okay, any more discussion? Okay, could you call the roll?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montre?
Aye.
Ms. Jandisek?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 3, the consent agenda. The agenda committee recommends to approve and place on file minutes from the August 1st, 2023 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board, general savings, pooled funds, and CD reports from the treasurer for July 2023, balance sheet and revenue expense report for the period ending July 31st, 2023.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Okay, motion in support of Mr. Bruning. Any more discussion? Could you call the roll?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Ms. Jandisek?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Montre?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Up next is the Monroe County Sheriff update. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Greetings to everybody. I'm Lieutenant Dan Zebek, for those that don't know me. I work here out of the Bedford office on the day shift as a lieutenant supervisor. Some of you I know, some of you I don't. Traditionally, Under Sheriff Jeff Pauley presents the activities and statistics from the sheriff's office on a monthly basis. However, he was unavailable, so I had the honor and privilege of trying to fill his shoes. So I'll do my best, and I apologize in advance. We've had some internet issues, and unfortunately, I'm required to review my phone, which I don't like to do, but I didn't have an opportunity to print everything out. So bear with me here while I do my best to see this very small writing. So this month, or I should say the month of July, the deputies assigned to the Bedford Contract Unit handled a total of 836 calls for service within the township. Highlights of those: 26 were business alarms, 22 were residential alarms, 30 well-being checks of individuals, 109 property checks of various businesses and residential locations, and 160 traffic stops. Unfortunately, right now, and I'm hoping it very soon, we'll have the ability to give you breakdowns of what violations, citations were issued for. We are in a transition process. Some of you may be aware we purchased roughly 3.5 years ago a complete revamp of our software system for report writing and statistical data that collects. We met a milestone last month where we are now paperless with the prosecuting attorney's office for putting all of our reports to the prosecutor for review. That is still a work in progress. Our next 2 steps, number 1 will be to integrate our traffic crash report forms within that software, and then also traffic citations, where we'll be able to keep a much better handle on statistical data that we can provide to you folks and let you know what our activities are. 116 of the written reports that generated, 12 of them were assaultive type complaints, specifically assault and batteries. 11 physical arrests were made of those 5 that were assault and battery related. During the month of July, we had a total of 8.5 hours of out of contract time, which means deputies assigned specifically to Bedford who were required because of emergency situations to travel just slightly outside the borders to assist our regular road patrol units. I want you to be aware that one of those was a medical complaint of an infant that was not breathing in Erie Township. The reason I bring that up is to let you know that we do our best as supervisors and the sheriff himself to make sure that your dedicated patrols stay right here in the township. It's those emergency type situations that we leave, and it's for as minimal amount of time as possible so that we can dedicate all our time right here in Bedford. Be aware, as probably everyone is familiar with, we're having a very difficult time, like everyone, maintaining employees and getting folks interested in law enforcement. We are still hiring in both our corrections and our road patrol divisions. We have several slated to attend the academy right after the first of the year. 3 are currently in the training program, scheduled to finish in mid-September. 2 of them will be more towards the end of the month. At this point, there's not been any decisions made whether they'll fulfill any positions here in Bedford, but highly likely that they will, at least at some point during their 1 year of service, transition through the Bedford area. So 2 of them are actually in training currently in the township, with field training officers. Again, I apologize that there is some data here that is broken down, but it's very difficult to read on a phone. So I think I've hit the highlights. As always, I encourage you folks, if you have complaints or information, we're here. Again, I'm the supervisor assigned to the day shift. I'm here 3 days 1 week, 2 days the next, not including weekends, but you're welcome to reach out either our main office or here and stop into the substation if you have any questions, concerns, comments, or advice for us.
Can you touch on how it's going with being touchless with phones and vehicles, the new law?
Glad you brought that up, and I forgot my sticky note. Thank you, Mr. Peroni. So I don't know if Under Sheriff Pauly presented this information, but in the month of July, actually in the end of June, the very first day that the hands-free law, if you're familiar with the new law that went into Michigan, no more hands device while operating a motor vehicle exclusively, whether it's commercial or a passenger car. We conducted some compliance enforcement at the end of June, and then again mid-July, where we kind of brought our threshold of acceptability down slightly in July now that it was in play for at least 15 to 30 days. Believe it or not, either the citizens are doing an excellent job of hiding it, or the compliance is up. It was much more difficult than we anticipated to catch anyone and or see violations. So I'm optimistic to believe that folks are recognizing the importance of this, and hopefully they are in compliance with the new law. I will say on my personal time driving around in the township, I do see occasional here and there, but in uniform again, whether they're doing a great job of hiding it or they're actually complying, it seems to be very high rate of compliance. So not a whole lot of the citations. I'm sorry I don't have the stats. And again, if Under Sheriff Pauly presented those to the board the last time he was here, I'm not sure if he did or not. I know that we conducted roughly, again, I'm just remembering from the data that was given to me is roughly 20 to 25 traffic stops. That was in a 2-hour period between Secord and Stearns, Lewis and Smith corridors, where we focused most of our efforts only because that's where the highest traffic volumes were at.
I found the shamey stick works. When you see people, you give them the shamey stick. It works.
Seems to work?
Yeah, they put it right down, so.
Good, good.
I'm not recommending you guys do that, it's for me.
Oh, it's not a okay, well, all right, well, then we'll continue to enforce it with citations if need be.
Well, thank you for being here. Anybody have any questions, comments? Yep.
If you're speaking specifically to the motels, all right, so obviously, I think most folks that are familiar with that area know, I don't want to be judgmental, but the clientele that seems to be over there. It's not a vacation area, if that's what you're asking, or if you're wondering. The calls for service have diminished. We're still getting our traditional medical calls and our suspicious activity. We have made a couple arrests over there, but certainly not to the level that we dealt with last year or last summer, I should say. So, again, optimistic to believe that hopefully our enforcement efforts over there have made a difference with those individuals that are coming there for illegal activity or whatever their reason for coming there hopefully is. They've subsided slightly. So.
Yeah, Paulie touched on that last meeting, so appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Okay. All right, up next, comment from the public. Comment is limited to 5 minutes for board agenda items only. Just state which item you'll be speaking on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Hi, my name is Steve Solinsky at 4540 School Road, Temperance, Michigan, 48182. I'm here for Agenda C to approve an agreement on the Manic Smith Group to create and plan and improve Grove, I'm sorry, not Grove Park, but the Car Park, Car Grove, I guess it is. And I wanted to express my hopes for getting a permanent pickleball courts at Car Park. I'm here along with many others who also want to see more pickleball courts in the Bedford community. Can I see a show of hands, everybody here who's from the pickleball community? Great, great, good. So we got a lot of people here. Currently on my group me, we have about 130 some people that are always rotating in and out on those courts, 2 permanent courts. Wanted to thank everyone who filled out the park board survey back in the fall. The Bedford community voted to have permanent pickleball courts at both Car Park and White Park. That was the #1 choices at that time. Currently, there are 12 permanent tennis courts in Bedford and only 2 permanent pickleball courts. Right now, the courts at White Park, there's a safety concern. They're pretty beat up. There's a lot of cracks. There was no foundation to begin with on those courts, so it's right on like the bedrock. You might know that the bedrock is right at the top there. And they're heaving up, and so there's hills and that kind of stuff that we're having to dodge and run around, and we're concerned about safety on that. And a lot of times where the paint's peeling up or whatever, there's the tape out there. The ball will not bounce on that, and so then it drops, and then when you're running out after it, you tend to want to like lean out at it, and another safety concern. I also wanted to note that with only having 2 permanent courts, I get a lot of phone calls from a lot of people in the community saying they want to have a party. Can I bring out those temporary nets to fill in the other 4 temporary courts? Unfortunately, they're Bedford community's property, so I'm not able to do that. We are only I was told only to bring them out when we have our designated times out there, which is 3 times a week. Also, coming up soon, the high school is going to be having a pickleball club, and so that's going to bring in even more people from other schools coming to us, and it would be great if they could have like an actual enough to play tournaments here. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the world in 2021, declared by the Sport and Fitness Association. In 3 years, from 2016 to 2019, the number of people playing pickleball reached 3.3 million. Now, in 2023, the U.S., the number of pickleball players is 36.5 million, a growth of 158% per year. The Bedford pickleball community asked the Township Board to please vote to allocate money to expand the number of pickleball courts in our community. In addition to providing more courts for our area residents to play pickleball, it will also bring more people from outside our community to play on our courts, who will then visit our area restaurants, gas stations, and other businesses. Thank you for your time and your consideration in this matter. Any questions?
Oh, we're good. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. And he
All right.
speaks for about 25 people, so
All right, thank you very much.
thank you for that.
Lamar Frederick, 3254 Deer Creek Drive, and I'm here for 8B. I don't know if any of you have looked at SEMCOG yet, but SEMCOG for a long time was running a roadway asset management program, and they may have information on the roads here. I haven't looked at it for a while, but there may be some information in there about the roads in Bedford. Thank you.
Oh, nobody cheered. Nobody cheered for that.
Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. I was questioning the 8G was the maintenance building project to move forward, and I guess I'm unclear as to whether that we've actually decided that. I saw that you guys all got papers here as of late, so I was just wondering if that was the project, and that hopefully we'll be able to get copies of that. Secondly, I wanted to discuss 8C. It is not that I am anti-pickleball, but we had somebody that showed up at not the last park board meeting, but the one prior to that, and it was Walter Stutz, and he spoke to how he goes to other places, and their courts are versatile in the respect that you can use the same courts. It's just a matter of changing the lines. It's just like on the basketball courts and the volleyball. The stuff's on the gym floors. You just, if you really know what you're doing, you can read those courts. So I'm wondering whether we should have something more like that instead of converting everything over to pickleball or doing the reverse. It's like everything else, it will change. And if the schools are going to have the clubs, then the schools have the tennis courts. They should also be providing for the pickleball courts. So that's all I'm saying. I have concerns with the fact that we have 3B and the issues that surrounded that, and not being able to be back and forth and compensating. So here we're going to put all this money into one particular sport. So I guess, and I'm wanting to talk to Mr. Goldsmith at another time to have a better understanding of that, because it was discussed at the last park board meeting last night that it's possible that 3B is able to turn their bills in for that compensation. So I'm looking at this money back and forth here, what we do for one and not for another, and have it fall into questions. And that's it. Thanks.
Any more comments?
Hello, Lisa Haas, 3332 Hemingway Lane in Lambertville, and I'm speaking to item E on the agenda. I am the president of the Bedford Band and Orchestra Boosters, and I'm here tonight on behalf of them. I am new to this position. I'm just starting my second year as president of this organization. Before that, I was just an active parent volunteer. And since taking over as president, there are a number of goals that our booster organization has. And my sights are set on making sure that the band and music programs are accessible to all of the students that want to participate. Oftentimes, kids find their place in band when they may not find it other places. And so as a booster organization, we are there to support the students in any ways that we can, as far as marching band, which is an extracurricular, but also the concert bands and the orchestra. So we raise money to offset costs that would otherwise be put on to the families. And it's important that we're able to possibly offer scholarships to things like marching band camp, trips that may be available to the students when there's a financial hardship in the family. It's important to us that we're able to support those families so all kids that want to participate can. Another goal that I have is to work hard with the other programs and to build bridges with the football program specifically. We are two strong groups, two strong supporters of the schools and the students, and I'd really love to work on bringing those groups together. One way that we're doing that is we, as band boosters, band and orchestra boosters, have asked the football team to join forces with us on a pretty big raffle fundraiser that we're going to be holding this September at the new stadium. And I know that they have things, they have financial costs that they're, always in need of money to support the football team, just as we are the band. So I figure what better way to bring two good groups together and to raise money for our individual causes. So I'm here to ask for the approval of a license application for our 501c3. The Bedford Band and Orchestra Boosters has been a 501c3 nonprofit for approximately 14 to 15 years. And we are taking on a raffle of a bigger magnitude, which requires a little bit more licensing from the state charitable gaming division. So in the past, this type of license has not been needed before. And so this is just one of the steps that we need to do, is to have our nonprofit recognized within the township. So unless anyone has any questions for me or comments on that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments from the public? Okay, moving on to 8A, vouchers for payment. Ms. Hirschberger?
I'd like to make a motion that the following vouchers be approved for payment. General Fund, $402,661.38. Fire District Fund, $16,632.12. Downtown Development Authority, $246.76. Library Operating Fund, $6,220.74. American Rescue Plan, $42,129.40. Transit System Fund, $45. Building Department, $528.58. Sewer O&M Fund, $261.33. Trust and Agency Fund, $3,056.50, for a grand total of $471,781.81.
Support.
Okay, motion is supported by Ms. Janaszek. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Janaszek?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8B, approve an agreement with Manick and Smith Group to develop a roadway asset management plan. A representative would like to come on up. This is something that we started, I believe, in 2012. Isn't it, Mr. Steiner? Trudy? 2012, I think. We started the asset management plan,
think
roughly.
so.
2013.
Roughly.
I want to say it was 2014.
2014. And it's the reason, in my opinion, why our roads are the way they are today, is because we created a plan with professionals and stuck with it, and that's why they're the way they are. Because the key to maintaining the roads is maintaining them. You have to seal them. You have to maintain them properly, and that's why a lot of you don't like them, is the chip seals that they put on. They're a cheap, easy way to maintain the roadways, and they just add years and years and years to the lives of the road. So that frees up more money for us to maintain bigger roads. So,
and obviously the whole intent behind that, Paul, is, and I prefer instead of cheap, cost-effective way of maintaining those roads, but to extend the life of the pavement surface. You know, rather than chasing down from a worst case scenario, you're trying to extend the life of pavement surfaces and not necessarily just fixing the worst ones first. So,
yeah. And I think it's really important next year is an election year. This whole board could be changed. It's really important for a new board to have a plan in place. You know, they're not relying on, whatever. They have a plan to follow. So I think it's important to stick with it for future boards. So, anybody have any comments, questions for Manica Smith? Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
that was easier than I thought. So, yeah, thank you. Obviously, it's been a continued service to the township and working along with the road commission, working along with the township to get the roads in great condition that they are in Bedford Township. And of course, there's more work to be done, but it's a never-ending process. And this is a step in the right direction in continuing that improvement on the roads.
All right. Well, I look for a motion. Or Mr. Steiner?
I didn't have a question, so I just want to make a statement that you're right. So basically 9 years ago when this all started, the board at that time had talked about it for a few years prior, and it finally became, reality. So a road committee was put together. I know they worked real hard with Manick and Smith, drove all the township roads. So you're right. That's why the roads look like they do today here. I mean, yes, I'm not going to say every road out there is perfect, but we still have a lot better roads than we had for many, many years. And this is just, I've said this before, this is just like your home, your personal car. Preventive maintenance is a heck of a lot cheaper than having to buy brand new. So for us to get a new plan put together, it's a good idea to move on that. And like I say, we're about 9 years, so we're going to be into about the fifth year of the second plan, if it's a 5-year plan. So we need to get fresh and get rolling on that program, especially with the time that it takes. Everything you do today really won't impact this year. It's going to start impacting for next year. So we got to be prepared ahead.
You want to work a motion into that speech?
I will work a motion into that we approve the presentation from Manick Smith Group for the roadway asset management plan update for the 2023 to 2027 fiscal years.
Support.
A motion supported. I would just ask that
Put the fee in there?
Add the amount.
Oh, and
Said as
the amount not to exceed $11,700 as presented.
Motion is supported by Mr. Montry. Any more discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Ms. Janasek?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Richburger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8C, approve an agreement with Manick Smith Group to create the plan to improve Carr Grove Park. You staying up for this one?
Chris is here from Park Board.
Well, Chris, come up too.
Yep, and I'll let you tee it up. How about that? And I can answer any questions that anybody might have. So.
Hi, Chris Schlegel, one of the Bedford Township Park Commissioners.
Can you pull that mic closer to you, please? You're good.
So we contacted Manick and Smith and got a quote to have engineering plans drawn up and bid specs drawn up for removing and replacing the courts at Carr Park. They've been unusable for quite a few years. I've been on the board 3 years, and they were unusable when I got on the board. I've had many members from the community reach out and help in talks and trying to figure out solutions to maybe repair them. And after looking into it for about 2 years now, we've come to the conclusion they're not repairable. They need to be removed and replaced with a proper base, proper drainage, and proper material. Manick and Smith's quote is for $10,500 for the engineering. I know when we looked into quotes a couple of years ago to have it removed and repaved, we were looking somewhere around $80,000 to $90,000. Since prices have gone up, we're looking to go a little bigger with turning what's there, the area existing, into pickleball courts. So it'll be 6 pickleball courts, but not doing a tennis. We're going to expand and add a tennis court where the dilapidated exercise equipment is. As for funds for the project, I don't intend on any of it coming out of this year's budget. We have a fund balance of $230,663.93 in what is described as the assigned parks, which is Fund 101-000-385.0020. That I believe could fund this project with the engineering and the entire project. So.
Brad, did you want to add anything else to that?
We have not done an engineer's estimate yet in terms of the overall cost of the project, so I think that still needs to be worked through in terms of the budget overall cost. But the proposal that is presented is really specific to the design, permitting, plan approval process that needs to take place for that to really become a reality. So.
Okay. Any comments, questions from
Engineers' probable cost is factored in here too. Like it's one of the.
It's
like one of the
it is
scope
part of our
of the
scope.
work.
Yeah.
Part of the scope of the work. Yep.
Correct.
Mr. Gore?
What we're looking at time-wise, let's say everything goes smoothly, funding and everything, when can we see the construction begin and end? Are we looking at spring, we're looking at next fall, roughly? Or how long will this project take?
Well, it's kind of a hard question to answer specifically. I think, in terms of the design schedule, we had estimated about 3 months to complete the design. That would be a shovel-ready project, ready for bid, 90 days after authorization.
So it could definitely be ready in spring.
Yeah, so.
That's what they're doing in this scope is figuring that out even.
Right. But I think, to answer your question, I think a realistic expectation would be all of you playing pickleball maybe next May or June. I don't want to put a finite date on that, but I think that's a realistic expectation.
It's about, okay, thank you.
Mr. Steiner?
About how long would it take to complete this project, if it's approved?
The design of the project?
The actual work itself.
Again, depends on the contractor availability and schedule, productivity rate of the contractor performing the work. I would expect it's probably a 2-month field effort.
I was going to say 2 to 3 is my guess.
Yeah.
Because if we're talking next year, Chris, you said it wouldn't come out of this year's budget. So basically you're saying it'd be coming out of the 24-25 budget.
It won't come out of any of our budgets. We have what used to be our rainy day fund. The parks used to be in a separate fund, in their own fund. And when we were in our own fund, we had to have our rainy day fund just like the township has. And when we were put into the general fund, our rainy day fund was then taken and put into an assigned park fund. And now our rainy day fund we are now covered under the general fund's rainy day fund. So the parks have an assigned fund of $230,000 that is separate from any of our budgets.
So they're just going to use the rainy day fund? They're just going to use the rainy day fund?
They're using their fund balance.
Oh,
They used to
you
have.
mentioned budget. That's why I thought he was talking coming out of the budget itself.
No.
Okay.
Mr. Montre?
Now, this would come out of something and would be within this fiscal.
Yes. It's going to come out of their fund balance.
Fund
Okay.
balance,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. So it's not budgeted, but they're pulling out a fund balance. But yeah, this
Correct.
would be within this fiscal.
Correct.
So it'd be the 23-24, not the 24-5.
Yes.
None of it has been budgeted, but the money is sitting in
Right.
their fund balance to use.
That's what I'm saying, but if you're going to do this, you're talking about spring, then yes, it would come out of the 23-24.
It's going to be covered somehow. Okay, any more questions, comments? Okay, I look for a motion.
I'll make the motion that we approve an agreement with Manikin Smith Group to create the plan to improve Cargrove Park.
Support. Okay, motion support of Mr. Bruning. Any more discussion? Okay,
Do
seeing
you
none.
have the amount in it?
You want to close?
Oh, you know what the
on the
amount, Joe?
motion?
What do we have for the amount?
10,000.
5.
On the back.
10,000, yep. For 10,000, the amount of $10,500.
I'll accept.
Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8D, approval of a bid for Fire Station 3.
Do you want to see if they wanted to?
If anybody would like to go, you can go now, or you can stay for the rest of the meeting.
You can stick
I
around.
don't want you to feel like you have to stay for another 2 hours. There we go, I figured so.
You should stick around. I would argue you should stick around.
You don't have to listen. You can go ahead and go.
Well, you should have recognized them because we got an applause.
Yeah. I can hear you. That picks up everything. Okay. Approval of a bid for Fire Station number 3 pavement replacement project. Manica Smith, you'd like to come on up for that as well? So we started this project about 6-8 months ago with the pavement falling apart at Station 3, and it continued to decline very quickly. And so at that point, we decided as a board to utilize ARPA funds to fund a concrete pod project in the rear half of the Fire Station number 3 off Lewis Avenue, if you guys aren't familiar with that. And so we've gotten to the point of getting ready to go out for bid, and so appreciate you being here and all the work you guys have done.
Not a problem. Thanks.
To add anything?
No, I know I had sent the email to Trudy with the township here. I know Eric Bennett, I believe, attended one of these board meetings with a couple different options presented to the board. At that time, option 2 was selected, which basically encompassed the entire rear portion of the parking lot, really trying to capture those turn radiuses that the trucks are making, which we think is the big component to the deterioration of that asphalt. At that time, I believe he presented an estimate of around $240,000. We had 2 bidders on the project. The apparent low bidder was at $222,000, $370,000, which was basically 7.5% below the original engineer's estimate. And at this time, basically, Manikin Smith would recommend award to the Gardner Corporation for that project.
Okay. Anybody have any comments, questions? Mr. Steiner?
So the removal of the asphalt for disposal of that asphalt, where would they take that for disposal?
That's at the contractor's discretion, but if I don't know whether or not their means and methods would include milling that asphalt, or if they're just going to remove it with excavation activities. I'm assuming that you may have a use for the millings if that's the way they remove it.
That's why I was asking, because if there was a use for the millings or something.
Yep, and I can find that out from the contractor once we have them under contract and see if that's a possibility. But
I don't know if you have a specific spot or project you're thinking of, but we've gotten to the point where we don't take millings because they just don't work well for like road, like if you're thinking like a dirt road, the way they compact together in the sun.
They don't compact. They spread
They
out.
do when it gets to the hot weather, but then they really wear, and then you can't maintain them. So, like I said, if you have a specific spot, like the other side of the maintenance building that we're going to use out back, if that would work for them. I don't know if we decide if we're going to utilize gravel in any of the areas due to wear and tear, but that would be a good spot because the guys could maintain it on a regular basis. But so
the other question. Obviously, I'm not an engineer and I don't pour concrete. And you mentioned how the truck's tearing up that asphalt, especially the ladder truck. So my question is, I noticed in here that the concrete says non-reinforced concrete. So could you explain that? And is this 8-inch non-reinforced really sufficient for that heavy ladder truck?
Yeah, the reinforcing is not necessary for this application. Actually, in a lot of MDOT circumstances, even these days, they've gone away from a lot of the reinforcing using the wire welded mesh and things of that sort. I know I did have some conversations with Mark Matthew in our office just to make sure that the loading and everything was appropriate for the 8-inch cross section of concrete. This is 8-inch concrete is a typical commercial approach. It shouldn't have any problems with the loading. And then the concrete itself is better for that churning radius as far as you're not going to shear those layers of asphalt away. So
Just so you know, Rick, we did bring that up months ago because Trudy had questioned it and himself as well, so that was something that they did look into a while back.
Yeah, so about what kind of base do they put down under that concrete?
I believe the plans call for 8 inches of 21A limestone.
Okay, so you got 16 inches total then?
Yes.
Between the stone and the
As
concrete?
a full pavement cross-section, yes.
Okay, that's all.
Mr. Gore?
Are we obligated to take the lowest bid because we're using ARPA funds or anything like that? Because granted, it's a $37,000 savings, but I like the idea of going with a Michigan company from Monroe County that employs Michigan residents, keeping Michigan residents working. I am torn. The job needs to get done. We need to save. We have an obligation to be financially responsible to the taxpayers and using the money. So I'm just torn between the two.
Well, I will say this. You would be surprised how many employees probably are from Michigan that work for that company. Like the Rudolph Libby Group, 70% of their company's from Michigan.
Many might live right here in Bedford.
Yeah, I mean.
That's why I said I'm just throwing it out there.
But it isn't a Michigan company. I mean, it's different with the taxes and all that. So it's definitely, it's a lot of money.
It is.
I definitely,
I'm torn
when it's
with.
close, I think it's a $37,000,
It's a lot of
it's a
money.
big difference, Mr.
I'll just say, like to reiterate, as we're actually voting on the actual bid now, that I'm still against the project as a whole, as I've been from the beginning. I'm still not convinced that we can't back in there the same as every firehouse in Toledo, and the Toledo Fire Department does on Lasky Road and busier roads. So that's why I will be voting no either way, no matter what the motion is.
Any more comments, questions, concerns? Okay, I look for a motion.
Make a motion to proceed with the Fire Station Number 3 pavement replacement project with Manick and Smith hiring the Gardner Corporation with the bid that's presented at $222,370.
Support. Okay, motion is supported. Mr. Bruning, any more discussion? Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Nay?
Mr. Gore?
Dollar amount was closer. I would go the other way, but I'll say aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 6-1. Appreciate all your work in this.
Thank you all.
Okay, item 8E, approve of a resolution for a charitable gaming license for Bedford Band and Orchestra Boosters. Anybody have any comments or questions? Okay, I look for a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the local resolution for a charitable gaming license for the Bedford Band Orchestra Boosters.
Support. Motion is supported. Mr. Gore, any more discussion?
There's Todd.
I don't care. Yeah, Gore can have this one. I don't care.
Mr.
You've changed.
Supported by Mr. Bruning. Okay. Sometimes it's hard for me to hear, but I get it. Okay. Could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed. 7-0. Appreciate you being here. Yeah, I appreciate all your work. Being the president over a nonprofit like that, It's admirable. So we need people like you in this community. So.
Thank you. We've got great kids, great parent
Yep.
support, and great community support. So
Thank
we're
you.
blessed.
We appreciate it. Okay, item 8F, approval of the agreement between the Monroe County Library System and Bedford Township. How you doing? Come on up. Jody, if you want to join.
Hello, I'm Nancy Belair, 1300 Winding Way, Temperance. I'm the director of the Monroe County Library System, and I have with me
Jody Russ. I'm the manager at the Bedford Branch Library. I live at 1273 Winding Way. So
Wow.
3 houses away.
We're here just to answer any questions that you might have. You have probably in your packets the draft agreement that is a renewal of something that we've been doing every 4 years for a really long time. Just to summarize for anybody that's not familiar with it in the room here, this is an agreement that we have with each local unit of government whereby the library system, funded largely by a 1 mil property tax across the county, provides library services, including staffing, materials, computers, network, all that kind of jazz. And the local units of government provide the building and the support for the physical plant and so on. So this is just largely administrative. We always show up just in case you've got questions. We save our long PowerPoints for other occasions. However, if you want one, say the word. We'll turn ourselves into, song and dance.
Okay, Mr. Steiner.
Basically, the contract's the same one, word for word, as we had previously. I think this is good to go unless I will just ask Mr. Goldsmith if he sees any reason we should change anything other than that. I don't recall anything I see in here that we need to change.
No, I do not. I think the agreement as drafted is acceptable, and it provides consistency, what we've been doing for years, which has worked remarkably well.
We had some bumps in the road, but we've worked through them.
You know what? It happens, but we always get a really good product in the end.
Yes.
We're really super happy to be partners with you.
Okay, any more comments, questions?
Quick question. With the Monroe County Library System, what national affiliation do they have? Do they belong to is there a National Library Board Association or?
You might be thinking of the American Library Association. That is an agency or an affiliation that we do have. That is like the American Medical Association, or American Podiatrist Association, American Architects Association. They set an approval process for the library school programs. They have to approve to be accredited library school program. They provide training and conferences and those kinds of things. Yes, we are a member.
Thank you. Okay, I look for a motion.
Make a motion to accept the Monroe County Library System 4-year agreement as presented.
Support.
Okay, motion in support of Ms. Janizek. Any more discussion? Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate the partnership.
Thank you. Same.
Okay, item 8G, request to move forward with the maintenance building project. Mr. Jacobs, appreciate you being here.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Have a little bit to add from our meeting last month, or a couple weeks ago, I guess now. Just to come open.
Start passing those down, would you?
Okay, we prepared based on some of the discussions and the direction we were given to explore a little further the opportunity to place a new maintenance facility on this site to the east of the building here. We've prepared an animation of what that might look like, and then you also were given a floor plan for potential layout for that building, developed a little further from our last conversations. So, look at the screen behind you here. This is just a quick animation of how that may look and sit on the property amongst the other buildings. Suggesting colors for the metal and for the lower masonry or concrete belt that would kind of mimic the color scheme on the current township facility.
And just so the public knows, we're not just building a maintenance building off a whim. We've done studies, and we currently are in a maintenance building that we've been in for a long, long time off Lewis Avenue in downtown Temperance. A very poor location for a maintenance building. And the condition of the building and the site and the cost to renovate is pretty much equal to this cost to build new. We have a lot of equipment, a lot of brand new expensive equipment, from dump trucks to excavators, to front end loaders, to, we just bought a $50,000 wood chipper. It's got to stay inside, and we need a building that is usable. The other building we use isn't drive-through. It's a maintenance building, but it's not very user-friendly, so this would be more centrally located. We could actually, drive to locations a lot easier. So I think it's been a great idea from this board and a great plan to move forward and a great use for the ARPA funds. So, anybody else, Mr. Steiner?
So, Jim, the drawing, and I mean, I get your idea of doors on both sides of the facility. Obviously, when you're not backing trucks in, less chance of backing into the building or backing into other objects.
Bless you.
So we've got, 9 doors per side. Do we need a full 9 doors? Would it make sense for, especially the ones that are, like you said, some of the equipment, not necessarily trucks, not to need doors on both sides for all 9?
So there could be some advantage to having doors on just the one side for some portion of those to be those bays to be used for storage, if we don't need to have all of them drive through. And I think the next level of development in this process would be to move to the design development stage, where we would work through more of those details and fine-tune budget to try to make sure that we stay within that budget frame. Obviously, the removal of doors are extremely expensive, especially doors of the size for what you're seeing here. So if we can eliminate some of those and make the bay still function for its intended use, and gain some additional rack storage for some of the palleted salt and maintenance products that they need to keep on hand here, we may ultimately reduce the number of doors, but conceptually, we're just showing them all right now as drive-through.
And part of the reason I said it because there's certain things, obviously, you want to keep dry, so the less openings in the building, better opportunity to keep things dry and out of the elements. I was not at the last meeting, but I viewed the last meeting, heard everything. I've also pulled some other information on this facility. And just for some information, some of you may or may not already have it. The big one I asked for is, what is our note on this building? So this building is due to be paid off fiscal year 2026. I knew there was only a handful of years left, so I'm thinking about replenishing our funds if we go as Mr. Miller had proposed, to take the funds from the budget. Fire station improvements for Fire Station 1, that goes through fiscal 2027. The ladder truck, fiscal 24-25. So I'm looking at those opportunities in the future to be able to replenish our funds if we do take this money as been proposed. I too agree, after watching the presentation, seeing all the information, when it comes to an old site You just don't know what you've got until you get into an old site, an old building. Now, if you tore the old building completely down, that's one thing, but if you tried to keep some of it, you still may have other issues that you don't know. My biggest concern of the Lewis Avenue property would be potential brownfield or whatever from contamination over the years. I don't think I want to get into a brownfield situation with that. I think it was close to $200,000 difference. And again, once you start to get into the drawings, say if you take out expensive doors, make some other tweaks, we might even get this number down even a little bit more. Other things could go up. And obviously, one of the other things that we want to talk about is in the future, we have to have something to store our equipment. That building, we've outgrown it. The building is not really feasible anymore from the condition it's been in and the repairs that it would need. And for that, and I say small amount, I mean $200,000 is not small, but for $200,000 to start with a brand new facility, I think we'd be much better off, and we'd be spending our tax dollars much wiser using a facility out back here.
Just to add to a couple of things, we won't need to be replenishing funds because the funds that we're utilizing for the projects that we're not doing are from last year's budget that was unused, so we won't be going down percentage-wise in our rainy day fund, so it'll still remain the 40.
Right, I'm just talking about building up our overall general fund and just keep building it up. And then that we think about that, maybe we put more back into roads again when we have to do major road replacements. That's my big one I'm thinking of, is getting those dollars built back up, especially if we're going to do the pavement management plan. We may see some roads that we before said, you know what, let's give it that stone chip and seal. Maybe the next time around we say, you know what, it's time to pull it up and repave it. So.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments, questions?
Is there any idea that if there's, first of all, are we going to keep the recycling bins on Tuesdays there, even with this built? Those are going to move.
That's something we can discuss. I mean, I don't know where we'd put them, to be honest with you. We tried it at other locations, parks. It becomes a hazard when you get at a site without cameras. And, you know, it's just...
We'll have to cross that bridge.
We saw when it was at the old Temperance Road Elementary School, it was a disaster over there. You know, but we can definitely look into another site, or, you know, maybe even a business would want to take it on. I mean, it's not our program. It's the county's program. We just give them a site. So
to answer that, the way the building is proposed to be situated on the site, we only encroach into the current asphalt area by about 3 feet in that section. So that is still tried to maintain. The direction was to try to keep it so that you could continue to do fire training and continue to do the pickup here. Now, what I will suggest is that this site is going to get very congested by bringing this maintenance traffic to the site as well. So while you still have the asphalt available for that, the traffic in and out of the site, which is where we're suggesting potentially that one-way until the opportunity presents itself to do it as a two-way road to circulate the site.
That was my follow-up question is, was there any plan in place to handle the amount of increase in traffic at the front of people coming in and coming out of Township Hall, that one entrance and exit?
Only to suggest that if it works out with the use of the far drive, the northern drive, to turn that into a one-way behind the building and two-way for sheriff's traffic coming in and out of there. Continue that use if that's as we develop the plan further. I think those are topics that we need to fine-tune and make part of the project to help with that congestion.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense too. And at some point, you could have signage there too that said this is, you know, for township vehicles only, sheriff's department vehicles only. That way, nobody's still going to try to come in. I mean, for the most part, people don't go there. I'm sure there's been a couple that have gone in that way, but we could put signage up to contribute to holding back other traffic from coming in there too.
And it's only one day a week, that we deal with it, but. So. Anybody else have any comments, questions? Okay. I look for a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to, I don't know if it just give Jim Jacobs, or actually, I don't know what the motion is.
This is just to continue on with the project.
Continue on with the project.
Yeah.
Motion to have Jim Jacobs continue with the project with the maintenance building.
Support. Okay, motion and supported. Mr. Bruning. Any more discussion? Is that a sufficient motion, Mr. Goldsmith?
Oh, don't be nitpicky. That's a good motion.
I just want to make sure before we get past it.
Yes.
For now.
With the addition, are you all aware of what Jim's budget is, and has that been approved, or should that be included within the motion? Moving on.
What's the budget moving forward with you?
Believe that for our services or for the budget for construction was 2.5 is where we had shared with you the last time.
His services are added.
For your services, Jim, in terms of you continuing on to further develop the plans.
So what we had presented previously was an agreement that was based on an hourly approach, in which you would asked us was to limit it to the $8,000 for the schematic design concept, which this kind of wraps up that phase of it. So we would either enter into that agreement to go to the design development, construction drawings, bidding, and construction administration phases of our service. The additional service that will most likely be required, we don't provide, Manikin Smith, as your township engineer could, is the survey work for completing the limited site improvements that we're likely to have with the project, as we've discussed. So typically that's going to be in the range of 7.5% to 8% of the construction cost, typical architectural engineering fees, plus the civil engineering aspect of that. But as it stands now, the last contract was an hourly approach to services for us.
So I wanted the board to be aware of what your financial commitment is by directing Jim to move forward, because you're really committing to move forward with the entire project, because it's a substantial expenditure to have him go to the next phase. So as long as you're comfortable with that and that commitment, you want to make that commitment, and knowing what the cost will be for Jim's services, that's the only thing I would have you suggest that you add to your motion.
Which is part of the 2.5 million.
No, that was soft costs were not part of the 2.5.
Not the 8,000, but moving forward.
No,
will be
soft costs were not part of that consideration.
2.5
it was for the building.
2.5 is construction.
2.5 is just construction, so the cost moving forward, the 8% is outside of that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
so it wouldn't be I was thinking it's an extension of the last agreement. It was not an extension of the last,
It would be an extension of the next
But under
step in our
different terms.
services. Well, we're working on the terms of that agreement, but we were only approved for the first phase of it. And we could do the same thing. We could just approve us to go to the DD stage, which is taking these up a level in detail and a level in complexity and answers for getting us to that point before we would move into construction drawings. Then you could approve us to go into construction drawings. It's a little more arduous approach for us, but I'm quite open to taking it step by step.
Do we need to have something that we're approving an agreement between, similar to what we approved for Manikin Smith? Like what we did today, should we have something like that before we move that forward to be presented at next meeting? Or I'm looking for that during discussion. We have a motion, but we can, in discussion.
Contract. Is that what he's saying? Yeah. So, I'm sorry, Trudy and I were discussing. So, for your purposes tonight, you could in which the motion was made to move forward and have Jim Jacobs move forward with the project. And then I do think maybe for next meeting, Jim, if you could put together a contract and maybe encompass.
We'll cover the remainder of
The remainder of the project. And so the board has an idea of what they're approving and what their financial obligation is. And there was good discussion tonight and maybe some misunderstanding that the 2.5 is your projected construction cost. That's not etched in stone yet because you're still deciding, just as Mr. Steiner said, how many doors are we going to have? That'll have an impact on the total cost of the project. So I think the motion with the understanding to direct him to move forward with the project, come back next meeting. If that gives you sufficient time, Jim, to prepare your proposed contract for the review, then you could firm it up at that time. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
And I think that's what I would have done regardless, because at this point, we need to move into a contract to go to the next steps. So I think that's a natural progression.
Yeah, that's what we was assumed with it.
We'll also reach out and get the additional other components for Manikin Smith and for our engineers to be part of our services for a complete package for you as well.
Thank you. So leave motion as is for right now.
Leave it as is for now with the understanding that Mr. Jacobs will return next meeting, provide prior to that meeting a contract for your review. You can have discussion on that and move to approve that at that time if you feel that's in the best interest of the township.
Can we put that in the motion?
You could.
Do you mind?
Yes. Go ahead, Todd.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay, could you call the roll?
Oh, Mr. Pruning.
Go ahead.
Another suggested friendly amendment. We should probably put in here, even though it was discussed previously, we should put in the actual funding source of where these dollars are going to come from.
I would think that would be at the next meeting, like when they present it. It wouldn't be within this motion. We're not approving funds necessarily.
Well, you're locking yourself in here. Bill?
Moving forward, it doesn't hurt. I think that decision was made at a previous meeting.
I believe it was.
How this project would be funded. Am I wrong?
ARPA fund
Well,
project.
it's been talked about many times, ARPA funds.
If you want to put ARPA fund, Trudy, you can put ARPA fund.
I can put it in if you're okay.
It ain't gonna hurt anything. I mean. Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Thank you, Jim.
I
Appreciate
was
it.
going to have you read the motion first.
Item 8H, approval to change the date of the November 7th board meeting due to a school election.
So Bedford Public Schools and Ida are going to have a special election on November 7th, which is a board meeting. So I am asking the board to approve moving the November 7th meeting to November 14th. Sorry.
We don't move.
I didn't
Don't
want
move
an
for
election
demolition
either,
derby
so.
day.
It's the night before deer season.
So I'll make a motion that we move the November 7th board meeting to November 14th due to a school election.
Support.
Okay, motion supported by Ms. Januzak. Any more discussion? Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Okay, up next, comments from the public. Comments limited to 2 minutes.
How you doing? My name's Joe Bellhorn, 633 West Stearns, Temperance. I'm here to talk about the widening of Stearns Road, east of Lewis, where the new Bedford Place apartments are going in. We recently received a certified letter from Cash Wagner and Associates that's going to be doing the widening for that apartment, which, I mean, it's basically a letter of extortion. They're telling you in the letter that if they don't get their easement, that you're not going to be too happy with the results of the slopes of your lawn and slopes of your driveway. I don't think that's acceptable. And I'm hoping that the township can get in there and make sure that this is done correctly. It shouldn't be done at the expense of the residents on Stearns Road. I've already got problems with water runoff off the road. My front door is only 42 feet away from the shoulder of the road, as it is. So needless to say, I'm not going to be given an easement. I can't. And I just hope that this is looked into. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments.
Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. Maybe we should, at this point in time, consider a tax for roads and let the road commission take care of our assessment, considering that we're going to be spending over $11,000 for Manick and Smith. I'm also questioning who Mr. Jacob has been working with on the design. And it would be nice if our fire department could have a building built like that versus the maintenance department. And it really does look tight, considering that I've spoken with the recycling guy. Even with the training tower, it makes it tight back there for him. So maybe we should put a new fire department building up and move the training tower, and we could do all that. But have we even considered the road commission's lot there on Samaria? I just really think there's been one person picking to put this here. We could add on part to this building and have our voting stuff here if that's what needs to be. But as far as the maintenance goes, I don't think that this is the ideal spot. This is actually, I believe, worse than downtown Temperance, but that's my personal opinion. Thanks.
We appreciate your comments. Any more comments? Okay, all right. Moving on to comments from board members. Mr. Steiner?
Just everybody think of disasters happen, what's going on over in Hawaii right now. My wife and I had the opportunity last year to spend our silver anniversary in Hawaii, right in Lahaina, right where all this took place. So really feel for the people over there. It doesn't happen just there. It happens all across this country. So we need to keep our fellow man in mind and do all we can to help support and get them back up on their feet as soon as possible. That's all.
Mr. Montre?
Nothing from me.
Mr. Gore?
For the gentleman, I'd like to see that letter if you have it with you at the end of the meeting. And also, folks, this is our last meeting before school gets back in session. It's already going back in Ohio, so when you're out there, please, please, please watch out for the children and watch out for the school bus and make sure we're stopping for those school bus lights. Thanks.
Mr. Bruning?
Yep, same thing as Gore, so I won't repeat it. And then I just have something to add. Someone called me today, and he liked what you talked about at the last meeting, Paul, about maintenance on the roads coming out of the building as far as turnarounds and stuff like that. He lives off of Whitman Road, so he would like, if possible, if you could develop some different way for them so they're not ruining that new road, Whitman, that's being done as far as coming in and out of the maintenance building. Oh, I said I'd bring it up. Yeah. So it's just something to think about while.
Well, the biggest thing is the water not coming in and out of there.
So
we have heavy equipment, but not super heavy equipment. But I'll talk to Pat.
Yeah, he just wanted it looked into, and if something could be done, great.
Yeah.
Other than that, football's getting ready here to start soon for Bedford. First home game is the 1st. Their first game is the 25th at Canton. Other than that, everyone have a good night.
Okay, Ms. Janizek?
I don't have anything. Have a good evening and good weekend.
Ms. Hirschberger?
Well, like I said, we have a special election for the schools on November 7th. We are still reviewing the new laws that were enacted by the voters with the passing of Proposal 22-2. There'll be many changes coming, both for the voters and the clerk's departments all around Michigan. Some of the changes that'll take place in this upcoming school election will be a second drop box for absentee ballots, while other changes won't take effect till next year. We'll be getting the information out to the voters as soon as it is clear and available to us. Newsletter articles are due by August 29th at noon in the clerk's department if any of you want to submit a newsletter article. And then the township hall will be closed on Monday, September 4th to observe Labor Day. That's all.
To follow up on a couple of Ms. Keene's comments, we have 7 board members. I mean, I can bring up ideas. I've brought up ideas in the past, and they've been shot down. If the board didn't like what was proposed from the ARPA committee, it wasn't just me, it's the ARPA committee, they could have turned it down and moved a different direction. But we're all in agreement that this is the best route to go. So that's why you elect 7 people, so one person can't control or dictate what goes on. You might think differently, but that's not what happens here. With the road commission, with the road, with the letter you've received, they have full control of the road system. I can make a call about the letter if you want to email me a copy of it, but I would recommend you go to their meeting, call Greg Stewart. He's our representative for the road commission here in Bedford. What's the other gentleman from Bedford who's on the road commission as well? Jack Thayer. You could contact
their office. What's their office hours here? Third Thursday?
Third Thursday, they're here at the township. So that's something to think about if you wanted to come see them. But that's who I would contact. If you don't have any luck, get a hold of me. But you will with Greg. He'll help you. They're here till 1 o'clock. The third. At 1. At 1. Sorry, the third Thursday. So. Not sure if y'all came in through the front, but the maintenance department has been working their butts off on the front of Township Hall. We've saved a lot of money utilizing our maintenance department. They've done a great job with their crew. I want to thank Al Pryor and Joe Lamkowski. They put a lot of hard work into designing it and getting it to look like that. Next, we'll be getting some work done on our parking lot, keeping it maintained. Parking lot looks the way it does because it's been maintained properly over the years. Just want to let everybody know we're doing a Boo Bash again in the Downtown Development Authority. It'll be at the Kroger parking lot. We look for more information. That'll be the Saturday before Halloween. We did it a year before COVID started. So this will be our second one we've done. Kind of squashed it for a few years there. I'm not sure if Verizon's fully back on, but they were down today in a lot of areas. So people felt that. Actually, I had to go to an address, and I didn't have my MapQuest to get me there. So it was interesting figuring out how to get somewhere without it, because you depend on it so much now, But, yeah, so hopefully that comes back on tonight. I'm excited the board passed the road asset management plan. It's extremely important to continue to maintain roads. I'm not sure if you guys realize, but we've spent almost $12 to $14 million out of our general funds over the years, the last, I think, 10 years on our road system. And we want to maintain and keep that asset we've put into these roads to keep our residents safe for the long haul. And so, other than that, things are going very well. Anybody have any comments, questions? Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourned.